This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. There's a lot of confusion about what it means that only 2 of the 17 co-conspirators are going to trial October the 23rd, and the other 17 are going to trial in 2024, including Donald Trump. We spent a lot of time on Legal AF on MeidasTouch Network exclusively, talking about motions to sever. These 2 trying to get away from these 3, and these 4 trying to get away from each other, and some group trying to go to federal court. It's confusing. I'm going to explain it here so you understand what happens on the 23rd of October with the Table for 2 trial of attorneys Ken Chesebro and Sidney Powell. They're the only 2 in state court, Georgia, Fulton County, that are going to trial in 2023. The rest in 1, 2, or 3 batches are going to be going to trial in 2024. But the real question is not like the calendar. Calendar's interesting. I mean, reasonably interesting. What's really important to understand is from the law perspective, what does it mean for Fani Willis? What does it mean for Donald Trump to have this trial, this dress rehearsal, go first? Does it have an impact on the future trials? Does it have an impact on witnesses who are currently unindicted, could be indicted, or even indicted co-conspirators now cooperating with the prosecution, becoming literally witnesses for the prosecution? Will that happen? What if Fani Willis loses? How does that impact the other cases? Does it impact the other cases? What if she wins? That's the purpose of this hot take. The win or loss decision-making tree that could happen based on my experience if they go first, which they're going to go first. So what happened? How'd we get here? 2 of the 19 co-conspirators in the racketeering conspiracy case in Georgia said, we want to go really fast. And the judge says, fine, October the 23rd. Okay, now we're there. And this trial is really happening. And a lot of people are thinking, no, they'll never try the case. They are. Now, they are part, Chesebro, lawyer, Sidney Powell, lawyer, who wrote memos, who did advocacy to try to promote the fake elector scheme for Ken Chesebro, use it to gum up the works, throw sand in the gears of the peaceful transfer, set up a fake elector system to put pressure on Mike Pence so that he would recognize the fake elector certificates, not recognize the legitimate Biden electoral certificates certified by each state because he won the popular vote more than Donald Trump, and somehow throw the whole thing over to the individual state houses because they're more Republicans of those than Democrats, and let them pick Donald Trump. That was the scheme. And Ken Chesebro, along with John Eastman, an architect of that scheme. Sidney Powell, co-captain of Team Crazy. She was out there filing all these ridiculous lawsuits that went 0 for 60, 6-0, in trying to prove to any judge, state or federal, or any board or secretary of state, that there was fraud in the election. Or at least what we call outcome determinative fraud, meaning there's always a little bit of fraud. Let's be frank, there's always a little bit of fraud. Somebody votes their dead mother-in-law's ballot, somebody votes out of precinct. It happens, but not enough to overcome the electoral advantage of Joe Biden in every state that he won to put him over, 270 votes. That's what we mean by outcome determinative. So those 2 are as part of this larger conspiracy. Think of a bicycle wheel with Donald Trump in the hub position, and these are the various spokes around the wheel, right? Prosecutors often talk about a conspiracy as a wheel because it's easy to see how off the hub, the central conspiracy leaders, you then have acts of conspiracy and co-conspirators, people connected to it. And that's what Sidney Powell is, and Ken Eastman is, Ken Chesebro is, and in that way. And so Fani Willis needs to do 2 things at the trial in October. One, she's going to put on the broader case for the first time ever with a real jury picked in Fulton County, Georgia, which is primarily Democratic and heavily African-American. She's going to put on her case. She's going to talk about the larger grand conspiracy that these 2 were involved in. But at a certain point, she needs to downshift and focus the jury on the evidence against each of them. So there's going to be a Ken Chesebro week of evidence, witness testimony, and the like. And there's going to be a Sidney Powell week or more. I mean, I'm being facetious. It could be 2 weeks of each, where all the prosecutor's talking about for that day is Ken Chesebro. And all she's talking about with her team on another day is Sidney Powell. And not to be confusing to the jury, which are lay people that are doing their civic duty, they'll try to probably group it together, right? Keep all the Ken Chesebro stuff together in one place and all the Sidney Powell stuff together in another, as part of the broader wheel that they're presenting. She's not going to present evidence at the Chesebro-Powell trial of what Donald Trump necessarily did wrong, right? I don't think in Chesebro and Powell, for instance, the infamous phone call from Mark Meadows and Donald Trump to Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, to try to find 11,780 votes comes up in that trial, except maybe only on the periphery. Or now, the things that relate to people that aren't there, that are connected to the defendants that are on trial, will be presented. So Rudy Giuliani is very connected to Powell and very connected to Chesebro and his bad conduct. So there'll be almost like a trial in absentia, if you will, of Rudy Giuliani, because evidence related to him that connects to these two are going to be presented to the jury. And the good part about that is Donald Trump's not going to be in the rooms. He's not going to testify to help these two. Rudy Giuliani isn't going to be called as a witness, nor is he going to testify, even if he were asked by Ken Chesebro, because he's got his own criminal case to worry about. So nobody's going to testify from the co-conspirators. So they'll be like the empty chairs that the prosecutors can dump on in a courtroom. Well, Giuliani's not here, but let me tell you all about him. Let me show you this email, this document, this video, this clip, this audio. That's what the prosecutors, that's the advantage they get when they're trying in parts a conspiracy case when other co-conspirators aren't all there at the same time. That's what they wanted, right? They could have had, if the judge would have allowed it, nobody was arguing about it, one big double row of defendant, 19-person co-conspiracy case, and it's some sort of giant, they could have moved to the Fulton County Stadium and tried the case there in public, because it's a public trial. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on the court TV. And maybe on the MeidasTouch network, we're going to get our hands on the feed too. And so there could have been that, but they didn't want that. This group wanted to scramble and get away from the speedy trial people and federal court and all that. The judge said, all right. 3 groups probably. 1 group now. The rest 2024. Fani, Willis, come back to me and give me your proposals. And that's for another day. So this is how the trial will be put on. Empty chair dumping by prosecutors of evidence of co-conspirators that are not there, which is to their advantage. And then days and weeks devoted to bright lines separating evidence so the jury is not confused about what Ken Chesebro did wrong. The memos that he wrote, the meetings that he had, the emails that he sent, and his role in the broader conspiracy. So she's got to explain the wheel, the whole conspiracy, but then focus the jury in her opening and throughout her trial methodically on the 2 people that are in front of them, while also ringing around them on the periphery other people that are co-conspirators, witnesses, cooperating witnesses for the prosecution that she will then either bring in if she can, because they're cooperating or they're subpoenaed, or they're not cooperating because there are other defendants like Trump where she can just dump on them. Trump may have his lawyers in the back of the room watching, but they're going to have no role in anything that goes on in the courtroom. Now, that's how the evidence gets presented. That's how she sort of splits the atom to both try a broader conspiracy case without having to put on the evidence of all 19 in the one case devoted to just 2 people. Heart health and staying healthy, especially when you have a family that you want to be able to spend as much time with as possible, is so important. We all have a heartfelt reason to support our blood pressure. In fact, more than half the U.S. population would benefit from blood pressure support. Super Beets Heart Chews are an easy and convenient way to support healthy blood pressure, and they promote heart-healthy energy. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in Super Beets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. And with over 30,000 5-star reviews and counting, Super Beets Heart Chews are having their moment. Super Beets Heart Chews are incredibly delicious and so much better than any alternative supplements out there. I take my Super Beets Heart Chews each morning, and it really kickstarts my morning routine. After taking my Super Beets Heart Chews, I feel like I have more energy and I'm ready to take on the day. Super Beets Heart Chews are effective and clinically studied. They are the #1 pharmacist recommended beet brand for cardiovascular health support. It's blood pressure support you can trust. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using promo code LegalAF. That's getsuperbeets.com, code LegalAF. Okay, now let's talk about what happens when the jury returns a verdict. If the jury returns a verdict, finds that based on the evidence, it is beyond a reasonable doubt that Ken Chesebro, lawyer number 1, Sidney Powell, lawyer number 2, either one or both, were co-conspirators and violated all the individual counts against them in the indictment. I think there's 7 against Chesebro. I think there's 9 against Powell, something like that. Then the jury's going to vote to convict. They're going to have a jury verdict for him. And Sidney and Fani Willis will have won. If she wins against both, at least one, but certainly both, that's going to have a major impact on the other cases, but not for the reasons you might think. If you're not a practicing lawyer, you might think that'll be good. The new jury will officially learn about what happened in that case, know those people were convicted technically, and that'll be used against the current people. Not so fast. Yes, the jury pool, the people that aren't yet selected that live in Fulton County, Georgia, of course, they have eyes and ears, and they read the newspaper and get social media, and they'll know the result. But, when they're trying to pick the jury, they're going to try to find people that will be fair and impartial, may or may not know about the results. I mean, it's interesting to you and me on the MeidasTouch network. Not everybody finds this fascinating or is following it as closely. So that's the jury. Now, the defendants that haven't been convicted are going to fight to keep away from the jury the fact that 2 people have already been convicted. And there's going to be a fight over whether the jury of the other 17 ever learn about the conviction. Generally, judges like to keep that away from them because they want the jury to make their own decision based on the evidence in front of them for the defendants in front of them and not use the fact that somebody else has been convicted to try to convict these people. Their case for the prosecution has to rise and fall on the evidence individual to the people in front of them. And so it's not going to be that likely that other than the jurors remembering this from, a year earlier, that they're not going to learn about that. But that's one thing. Same thing if there's a loss. The juries are not going to learn about that either. That's why when you have multiple juries and multiple trials about the same criminal conspiracy, you have the chance of inconsistent jury verdicts. It drives prosecutors crazy because one jury could get hung, one jury could find some but not all, and another could throw out the case completely, and others could convict in a minute. But that is the risk that the justice system takes when you have multiple jury trials of the same conspiracy and spread out among multiple defendants. You just do. You want one verdict that's consistent, you got to have one trial. So there is a chance here that she could win some and lose some. She could win a batch and lose a batch. And even within a batch, she could win some against some defendants in some counts and not against others in other counts. That is just the way our justice system works. It's up to her to learn from the experience in her first trial and bring it into her second, third, and fourth trial. But I don't believe that the second, third, and fourth trials, including Donald Trump's, are going to learn what happens in the first trial. That's not the impact. And it's not law of the case. In other words, the fact that one jury convicted 2 people doesn't mean that the other 17 are going down or that the jury should learn about it or the judge should hold it against them. Fani Willis, is kept to her proof. She's held to her proof. Her feet are held to the fire to carry her burden for each defendant, which is beyond a reasonable doubt proof. Okay. What if there is a win, though, which is what we think is going to happen based on just the evidence that we've seen in recent filings? Ken Chesebro's own filings has given us a lot of evidence against him. Then what you will hear is that sound you'll hear in the background, flip, 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 is going to be currently unindicted co-conspirators rushing to Fani Willis to cooperate and become witnesses for the prosecution. You've already seen that. Lynn Wood a Georgia lawyer now disbarred and disgraced, who was mentioned and recommended by the special purpose grand jury, the recommending, advising grand jury, to be indicted. He has already, in the last few days, gone to become a witness for the prosecution and is now listed. He's now cooperating. Half the fake electors are cooperating, and they haven't been indicted. So there'll be that group that's sort of in that netherworld of indicted and not indicted that will run to Fani Willis and start cooperating, especially if they watch Chesebro and Powell, that now infamous law firm, go down in flames. You will also see indicted co-conspirators of the 17 remaining, not named Donald Trump, lining up to cooperate with Fani Willis because they've already seen the preview and it's not good for them. And so having seen the ghost of Christmas past and future, they cut a deal with Fani Willis, plead whatever they have to plead, and start cooperating. And she continues to develop more evidence for her case. So she will have more witnesses in her back pocket cooperating with her if she wins the first two, and she knows the stakes are that high. They won't be named Donald Trump. Maybe Mark Meadows, maybe. Whoever is further away from the center of gravity of MAGA crazy cult will spin off and cut a deal with Fani Willis. And the closer they are to that center of gravity, the true believers, the ones that are Kool-Aid suckers for Donald Trump and his cult, Jeff Clark. I'm not sure about Meadows. I have a mixed view of Meadows. But others in Team Crazy, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, he has the most to lose. This guy, just this summer, Rudy Giuliani, is indicted 13 times in Georgia. He's an unindicted, for now, co-conspirator listed by Jack Smith in the District of Columbia. He loses his second law license. He's found to have defamed and exposed himself to millions of dollars of defamation damages and punitive damages related to 2 Georgia election workers that he lied about in public. And he's got it's almost like, and his dog left him. His best friend is suing him for over $1 million of unpaid legal fees. And we could go on about Rudy Giuliani. So he would be the one you think is most compromised and would go cooperate. But that's what's going to happen. Now, what happens in the scenario where she loses? Is it possible? Sure. As I like to say, there's two old adages about trial lawyers like me. If you haven't lost a trial, you haven't tried enough of them. That's one. And secondly, I have won cases that I should have lost, and I have lost cases that I should have won. And that keeps prosecutors and trial lawyers up at night. That adage. She could lose. Now, if she loses, she can minimize the bomb blast of the damage, because, as I said, the new jury's not going to learn about that other than what they learned before they became a jury. And so she'll be able to kind of fix the problem. It's sort of like a dress rehearsal for her. She can tweak her case, figure out where she went wrong, make adjustments. It's like AI, except it's really intelligence, not artificial intelligence. And she can put it into the next cases. But it will also embolden, as you can imagine, and make the defense dig in and high five, because 2 of their 19 just went before a jury in Fulton County and she couldn't make her proof, Fani Willis. And so it'll have that impact. It'll make people dig in. Less people will cooperate with her. She's already got her evidence, but less will then cooperate with her, strengthening her hand. And she'll have to be careful to make sure the jury doesn't hold it against her that she lost the other 2 if they learn about that, which she'll fight hard to make sure that they don't. Other than that, she'll have to present her evidence one by one in the great conspiracy. She can't adjust her conspiracy. Her indictment is her indictment, but her evidence, of course, can be improved and adjusted as they present. Maybe a lawyer pissed off the jury, one of the lawyers on her team. Maybe she makes a switch, right? She changed. It's like a horse in the Kentucky Derby or in one of the major stakes races that doesn't do well, and they switch jockeys. So she could switch lawyers. Maybe she does more of the work in a case. So we'll see. But you'll have to present that whole conspiracy case and then the individual evidence against each all over again in groups of, let's say, my prediction is there'll probably be 3 more trials of, let's say, 5 or 6 apiece, and Donald Trump will be in the first wave in early 2024. That's the analysis of how this kind of trial works, how the broader conspiracy has to be presented in the Chesebro Powell October trial. You get to dump, if you're the prosecutor, on missing co-conspirators because they're not going to be there. So you dump on the empty chairs, but you got to focus your evidence so the jury understands what Chesebro really did wrong, what evidence is against him. Same thing for Sidney Powell, as you dump on the people that are not there, like Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and the like. That's how that trial goes. And the results of it can have negative or positive impacts on the real world circumstance of witness development and evidence development. Okay, even if the jury technically doesn't learn one way or the other about how the earlier trial went, they can pick it up, and that could undermine her. So there's a lot riding. It's not nothing that she's got to try her case in October. And she's got to try knowing that there are multiple audiences for this. The American people watching this live on television, the judge that's presiding over this and all the other cases, the defense lawyers that are watching, right? Probably be in the courtroom watching what happens with this particular trial. And then Donald Trump, right? We got multiple audiences going on. So the stakes are very high. I don't want to underestimate the stakes. Like, well, if she loses, it's no big deal. She's got 17 more to go. It's a big deal. So and this is the reason she waited 5 or 6 months. We were all like, why didn't she bring the indictment when it's been so long? Because she's preparing her case just in case two of these jokers did what they did, which was declare a speedy trial, forcing the court to schedule it within the next 60 days where their indictment would be dismissed, right? They played Russian roulette, and she had to be ready, and she is. So we'll continue to follow the October trial, all the motion practice that's happening left and right by Powell and Chesebro, and how it impacts the other defendants, only in one place, exclusively on the MeidasTouch network. Help them get to 2 million. They're so close. It makes them more powerful and then amplifies your voice as a result. I do my hot takes one place. I sit at that intersection of law and politics as a 32-year practicing lawyer exclusively for the MeidasTouch network. On Wednesdays and Saturdays, we pull it all together with two of my co-anchors, Karen Agnifilo and Ben Meiselas, on a podcast we call Legal AF. It's what you think. Watch us on Wednesdays and Saturdays on the YouTube channel. Go over to the YouTube channel for MeidasTouch. You'll find all of our hot takes listed there as well. Go over to MeidasTouch.com for all breaking news, our library of information. We got a team of like a press room that's writing original content. And then we've got all our podcasts there as well. Until my next hot take. Oh, by the way, give me a thumbs up. Helps with my ratings. Until my next hot take. Until my next episode of Legal AF. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.